And today we are very privileged to be hosting a very special report back session with Dr. Nicola Pallitt, who has just returned from the 2016 AECT Convention. AECT stands for the Association for Educational Communications and Technology, and the convention was titled Learning from Las Vegas. Nicola is a lecturer in the Center for Innovation in Learning and Teaching, which is CILT, at the University of Cape Town, where she co-teaches on a postgraduate program in educational technology. She is also a member of the Emerge Africa team and co-convenes the online course Facilitating Online. Nicola is a network scholar who loves Twitter and enjoys networking with fellow researchers about critical and contextually informed approaches to educational technology. As mentioned earlier, AECT Convention was held in none other than the exciting location of Las Vegas, which actually means the meadows in Spanish. And it is the most populated city in the state of Nevada, and it bills itself as the entertainment capital of the world and is one of the top 3 destinations in the United States for business conventions. And now, of course, also known for the 2016 AECT Convention. So during this presentation today, if you have any questions or you would like to know anything, you are welcome to enter this into the text chat area and we can end of the session. And
thank you very much, Kath, for the introduction. So after a very long flight from Cape Town all the way via Amsterdam, I finally arrived in Las Vegas to attend the AECT Convention. It took place between the 17th and the 21st of October. And being the social media beast that I am, you're going to see a lot of tweets and Instagram pics, so just a warning. But before the fun, I thought I'd share some essential information about the AECT as an organization and the annual convention so that people attending today's webinar get a real sense of the scale of both. Okay, so as Kath mentioned, AECT stands for the Association for Educational Communications and Technology Organization. It was actually started in 1923, and it is the oldest professional home for educational technology as a field, and has maintained a central position in this field since then, promoting high standards in both scholarship and practice. They've got a range of national and international affiliates. I mean, I can't tell you how massive this organization is, and all their affiliates. And I'll share some more details on that shortly. And also to communicate a sense of that scale is the program. Okay, so the conference program was over 200 pages long. I think that also says it all. There was just so much choice, and the conference program really demanded a lot of attention and skill in navigating. Luckily, there was also an online conference planner, which assisted attendees to create a personal schedule. The theme of the conference was Learning from Las Vegas, and Emerge Africa was invited to attend, and I'll tell you why shortly. The theme basically highlights the value of this meeting for attendees, which is about learning from peers and experts in the field. So AECT seeks to be a leading international organization in the EdTech field, and one to which others refer to for best practice and research. So they promote scholarship, best practices, and leadership in relation to creation, using, and managing of EdTech for the purposes of teaching and learning. So they had proposals from across the globe, obviously, and the program had special and presidential sessions, concurrent presentations, panel discussions, poster presentations, round tables. Hi, Irene. And there were 400 concurrent sessions, 18 different workshops, 3 keynotes, and it was held at the Westgate Hotel and Casino. So that you're seeing here is part of the hotel. And also, when it comes to a program like that, you're looking at probably 30 events going on at the same time, of which 10 you really, really, really want to go to. So it was, I mean, that also gives you a sense of the volume. Okay. So as I mentioned, the schedule included receptions, meeting opportunities to connect and network with colleagues and new friends from around the world. The audience consisted of veterans, novices, practitioners, researchers, and theorists from the EdTech field. This photo was taken at the Breakfast with the Champions, where attendees got to sit and sort of play musical chairs between different champions, and some of them you may recognize. So I sat with Danilo Balin, and then I sat with David Wiley, and really, conversations at those breakfast tables were really, really interesting. And there you might see George Valencianos, and here's David Wiley in his AECT t-shirt. Okay, and just to link back to that theme, I thought it was really interesting, the idea of, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, and where the saying comes from. But it was actually part of a rebranding exercise where the tourism folks at the time wanted Sin City, Las Vegas is also called Sin City, to be associated with more than gambling. And they wanted to make this connection between Las Vegas and the freedom that we all crave, which is basically to be who you wouldn't be at home. And part of this involves, knowing this code and not breaking this code, sharing what happens in Vegas. But for AECT, it was very clear and made known that this code was going to be broken, and that what happens in Vegas needs to go beyond Vegas. And we need to share our learning with those back home and with the world in general. Okay, so I've got 3 questions here. I've used to structure today's presentation. The ones, what happened at AECT? So what happened in Vegas? I'm going to break the code. What can I share? And then what's next? So David Merrill said something really interesting at AECT. He says you only need 3 crayons to draw a picture. And Philip Yenawone said, you only need 3 questions to start a conversation. So hopefully, 3 is the magic number. And I think what I learned will also come out in what I, answering what can I share. Okay, so something very important happened at the AECT Convention this year. This is the big one that you've all been waiting for. Emerge Africa became an affiliate of AECT, and I signed the MOU to formalize this affiliation. So on Friday, we signed the MOU at the AECT board meeting. Tuteleni Asino and others we were all very, very excited. So here I am standing next to Tuteleni, and in the front we have the CEO of the AECT and the new president, Brad Hokanson. The CEO or executive, is sitting on the bottom left. That's Philip Harris. Then next to him is Brad Hokanson, who's the president, and Kay Persikiti sitting on the right. Okay, good question, Irene, and I'll get there shortly. So what does this affiliation mean for us? Okay. And you've actually jumped the gun a bit, because I wanted to first tell you all how it started. So this idea was actually started by way back AECT interns. They're not interns anymore. Tuteleni Asino and Tanya Doucet. And they initiated and brokered this relationship. In fact, Tuteleni first raised the possibility of an association between Emerge Africa and the AECT over 2 years ago. And they looked at all the affiliates and they noted that, when they were interns, they said, well, Africa is largely absent here. What can we do? How can we network? How can we get an African voice in the field? And especially, Tutaleni's originally from Namibia, now working in the US. Of course, it was very, very personal because he wanted to network with folks back home and find some way also to keep in touch. Okay, so it was super exciting that what started as an intern project became a reality with the signing of the MOU. Okay, so here to answer Irene's question about what does this mean for Emerge Africa? So what does it mean for the network? It means that we can unleash the power of networks even further. And we're planning a lot of online, shared online events, collaborations, and I think it's incredibly important to also have a local within a global perspective. So that's what Emerge Africa Network. That's what it means for the network, but for members, there will be a discounted membership fee to become a member of the AECT. I think it comes to, in South African rands, about just over 200 rand, I think. I could be mistaken, but I remember thinking, wow, that is literally less than a lot of academic books. And that's your annual fee, which entitles one to, as an AECT member, you get access to their journals, downloadable books. They've got a major reference guide. You can sign up to divisions, get their newsletters. You'll have access to when they send out their calls for papers and all those things. So it's absolutely, really, it just gives one access to a whole new, bunch of information, especially for, whether you're a researcher or a practitioner. And even if you're in higher education, at a university, as a researcher, some of you may be facing, the unbundling of journal subscriptions, and you're finding that, journals you used to have access to, no longer do. I had that very, very rude awakening the other day when I looked for an article I'd written. I wanted to pass it on to someone, and I couldn't even download my own journal article. It was such a shocker. But anyway, so access is a major thing here. But being part of a network, it's also about networking. Okay, that's why people get involved with professional networks in the first place. You want to meet other people with similar research interests. People I noticed on the AECT website, member profiles. So you can also set up a member profile, network with people, and even by Twitter, and to also, I mean, it's about mutual reciprocity. It's not just about getting stuff, but also what you can contribute. Interesting. There's always the possibility for research collaborations. So essentially, what this could become depends on you. And we've already had an interesting joint event. We had a tweet chat a little while ago on social media for professional development and collaboration. And that was moderated by Tutaleni and Tanya. Okay, so that was back in August. And while I was at the AECT Convention, I also was part of a panel discussion. Just thought I'd mention that. And when I came back, well, unpacking my conference swag, I hadn't realized I'd accumulated so much. So I thought I'd also just unpack learning from Las Vegas, what it meant to me personally, but also Emerge Africa more broadly. I attended a session on, chatting to editors of journals, and they spoke about, and a lot of the people who attended that session, that they do 3 to 4 revisions. Good question, Catherine. The presidential sessions I know were recorded, and I'll make these slides available shortly. There are a lot of links in the notes sections. Their proceedings as well as their video recordings have not been released yet, but will be shared soon. Okay, so unpacking learning from Las Vegas. So in the session on Meet the Journal Editors, people were saying that it's quite common for there to be 3 to 4 revisions on a paper before a journal finds it acceptable. And, this is normal, so they were kind of like telling us to, keep at it. And very often I find, myself included, we feel quite demotivated if we have an article rejected from a journal, or feel that, or see that we need to do revisions. And I think we take it quite personally, being from an African context, but attending that session made me realize that, they're saying it's normal and keep at it. We shouldn't take it personally. I also, realized that the differential access to internet based on geography, access to resources, devices, this is also normal. And the designing for diverse learning experiences should actually be a default. Even when you're flying over the different countries and you're seeing how dispersed a lot of the continent is and how far apart, you realize, well, this is actually the norm, and we should be designing for that. And often people another thing is that in Africa, we always think, oh, we're behind. I think we need to change our mindsets and grow in confidence to share our perspectives, because there are people globally who want to hear our voices and who are very open and fascinated by different views. I think diversity is our strength and we need to share it. So those are the big things that I learned in Las Vegas, because things popped up in conversation when I was chatting to people and they wanted to know more about it, but I hadn't written any of it up formally as research. I think it's really important to also look at spaces where we can share work in progress, and I'll chat a bit more about that soon. So for me, it wasn't just about navigating the conference program, which initially was quite, overwhelming. I'd printed out, all the different days and made my own schedule. But also it was about navigating, the organization. And key navigators for me were actually people like Tutleni and Tanya, for who, and this affiliation with AECT is also thanks to them. As I mentioned before, it was making sense of also the divisions, the journals. I mean, they've got a whole bunch. It's absolutely, and I think one kind of like you go to your first AECT convention just to see how everything works and fits together. But I thought I'd share some of my Twitter and Instagram highlights and the people I met. And while I met many, many interesting people, some who I've already made contact with again since the conference, and some who I still plan to connect with, I'd just like to acknowledge that I can't acknowledge everyone in this presentation here due to the focus of the event. Okay, so in the top left, there are some instructional design heroes I had the privilege of meeting, who you may recognize. On the top left, is Professor David Merrill, and to his right is Professor Tom Reeves. Okay, so they both did presidential sessions. It was a great honor to see them face to face. Some of you may know Reeves's work on design-based research, so DBR, or perhaps you've heard of Merrill's first principles of instruction. So they have both been, part of the AECT David Merrill said he's been part of the AECT for around 50 years. Yeah, so they are like AECT veterans. Okay, and it was interesting how he said, well, and kind of like made me, I had a similar feeling, David Merrill in the early days told his boss, we said, well, what did you think of the AECT conference? He said, well, I didn't really learn anything new. And I kind of, to be honest, I had that as well because I know about social media, I know about learning analytics, heard about MOOCs. Nothing that was really new. There were a lot of things that were exciting though. And but basically, David Merrill's boss said it's not about you learning something new, and you don't go to the conferences to learn things new. It's about what you are able to teach and who you can meet. Okay, so that also gives a very different perspective on conferences and why people attend conferences. Yep, Kath, it's all about the networking. And below that is a picture of George Letsianos, and he's in the middle there. He's the dark-haired man standing in the middle of the other two gentlemen. And I brought my copy of his latest book all the way from South Africa for him to sign. His latest book is Social Media in Academia, Network Scholars. No surprise there why I'm attracted to that title. And actually, his book won the Outstanding Book Award at the AECT. So it was quite exciting in that sense. And I read it on the way, during my flight. Actually, nearly finished it. And on the top right, it's a stand from the Designers for Learning. You'll see a little familiar face there, and they had a really interesting part of this photo booth. You had to pose with your answer to the question on what impact will you make. And I think this is an important one for us all to contemplate, especially in relation to these new networking possibilities. So Designers for Learning are a non-profit who provide instructional design support, and they have a MOOC on CanvasNet, and on Saturday they actually have a 12-hour webinar series. They're calling it a webathon, and many of their speakers were from AECT. So if you search #EdImpact, you'll find more details. So I'm just putting that in there quickly because I think it's super, super exciting. So a little plug for them. And you'll see some big names on their program. Hi, Marcella. Nice of you to join us. So since you did the Learning Design course, I will just mention this again. If you search #EdImpact on Twitter, you'll find a really interesting webinar series coming up. And that's by the non-profit group called Designers for Learning. But I will share my slides as well so folks can catch up on that. Sort of going into a little bit more on what did I learn and what can I share. I think technology is like the neon lights of Las Vegas, where it's very easy to get seduced or distracted from the really important stuff, which is the pedagogy and the learning. I liked that there were a lot of presentations that spoke about social presence and the human side of educational technology. I think Tom Reeves did an excellent presidential address on the future of deep learning in EdTech, and where he sees creative design involving the marriage between human and machine learning. My favorite presentation was by Kelly Elander, pictured here, and he was talking about how online course designers, facilitators, educators can decrease the distance between ourselves and learners through e-learning, e-collaborative approaches, and how we can expand social presence. I don't know, maybe I was just at that stage a bit more aware of distance and learner isolation because of the current situation in South Africa with the national student protests. The week of the conference, when I went to the conference, was when things kind of got quite hectic back home. And I think I felt a bit disconnected because my Twitter timeline was now suddenly reflecting US time, and I had to go and search for information rather than have that information sort of flung at me. I'm also very interested in social presence and online courses because of the facilitating online course, of course. Um, but there were lots and lots of presentations on learning analytics, gamification, game design, badges, social media. But what came out strongly in a lot of the presidential sessions for me and sessions that I attended, as I mentioned, the program was massive. It was absolutely impossible for anyone to attend everything. But what came out for me was this emphasis on the social. I also attended a lot of sessions featured by the Culture, Learning and Technology Division, and really look forward to becoming more involved in that group. Okay. I also enjoyed, there was an emerging technologies showcase. So that was a very exciting conference format. And there I met Jodie Lawrence, who is an architecture lecturer, and she used VoiceThreads as an online counterpart to traditional design studio. So I thought, I've got some colleagues interested in architecture education and even if it's not that field, people who use a studio approach to their teaching. And I thought this was really interesting because you're not just using voice, but also visual annotation. And having piloted some audio feedback with our PG DIP students, I was becoming more interested in using voice for assessment feedback. So naturally, Jodie's stuff appealed to me a lot. There were also, at the showcase, there were people doing stuff on badges, folks using Open Passport for badges in an online course to do with horse farming, which I thought was quite unique because we don't really see that. A lot of vocational ed related to farming. So there was quite a bit of that at AECT. AR, augmented reality. But I think for me, the highlights at the tech showcase were the voice threads. And also there was someone doing work on Google Docs. It was a revision assistant. So it was an add-in for it provides visual proofreading advice. And a lot of these are people, they're sitting at tables and they're sharing work in development. And I think, we can do a lot more of this, both in our, in our own network and our institutions. And that's from the session I mentioned earlier, where the editors of various journals were talking about, what they had to say. And I realized during that session that we actually all have something worth sharing, but we need to perhaps learn a bit more about how we can, which journals to target, how to pitch our work. Where do you share research in progress stuff? Where do you see, or small sort of empirically based pilots? And where do you share the more theoretical stuff? So one of these is Tech Trends. So they've got their distance ed division is sponsoring a special issue of Tech Trends, which is entitled Celebrating the Practice of Distance Learning. I think their their date is pretty soon for this proposals for this special issue. I think it is on the 11th of November. But this is a very good, practitioner space. This was mentioned as, they published case studies. And then another one which Tanya also shared with me was designs for learning. So this, okay, it's displayed kind of badly, but if you go if you go to the slides and then navigate to this specific page, you'll find the link in the notes. You'll also notice designs for learning, the Journal of Design for Learning. That's stuck over there. And that was seen, she said, well, this is a really good space for early, researcher practitioners and, people where, as you mentioned, Martucella, people who are starting to develop some confidence. If you want a place to, if you've piloted something, you want to start sharing in a space, that would be a good one to try out. And what's next? Well, the next AECT conference is happening in Jacksonville, Florida. The date's already set for next year. And of course, when Emerge Africa members become AECT members, they get a discount on attending that conference. I would definitely, if I have the opportunity to attend, I would definitely go again. And next is also some of our very exciting collaborations in the pipeline. So we've got Tutleni presenting the next event on adoption and diffusion of technology in African countries. So that is happening next week. Okay. But I need to just quickly draw your attention to this, that it's happened at 3 p.m., not our usual lunchtime. Yes, in this very same meeting room. Thank you, Kath. And yeah, that's it, folks. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the text chat. I see Kath had one earlier related to publishing. I'm just going back. Revisions, well, you asked about revisions of on journal articles. Often people are bound by time. They don't always follow the submission guidelines or the notes to authors. Or when you're writing, you think, oh, no one's going to notice that little reference that's not cited at the end properly. And in the world of publishing, everything's got to be perfect. So that's just more a minor revision, but it could be major. It could be restructuring. It could be reframing. Yeah, you really have to read the fine print when you submit a journal article. And also not just submitting something because of the reputation of the journal. Obviously, impact and that stuff is important. But also think about the fit. Is it a special call? How does the topic or what you're writing about fit with the focus of the journal? Okay, any other questions? And we'll also be doing a lot of, we're looking into a mentorship program where we can grow our EdTech research skills. So that's very much still development stage. We've also got one coming up probably January next year with Tutleni and with Tonya Doucet and Rob Branch on instructional design models. Because emerged members who are part of AECT, by then, hopefully all the technical stuff's worked out, will be able to download their book. So we're looking at those kind of overlaps as well. What is an Adobe presentation? Sorry, I don't understand the question. It will be you mean Adobe Connect? Yes, indeed. It sounds like Tanya, but it's Tonya, like that. But still very much in the works. We're finding time differences to be actually that seems to be our main issue. Any more questions? If there aren't any more questions, pleasure. Pleasure, Liza. See Monticella's typing. Indeed, very, very exciting and productive. Sure, we'll also post the recording in the Facebook event. So you can always catch up on the first bit, Monticello. Pleasure. Okay, so we'll share the slides and the link to the recording in the Facebook event page. And yeah, wishing you all a lovely day further. Thanks for your time.
Thanks very much, Nicola, for sharing with us everything that happened in Vegas. And yeah, you've only been given a short 1 hour stint to actually go through everything, but we can see that there was a lot that actually went on, a lot that happened, many sessions that you attended, and as you said, so much happening that there was actually you had to make a choice at the end of the day and prioritize which one am I going to attend, which one am I going to lose out on. But really exciting news about that affiliate with AECT, and that is amazing, and all the possibilities that it actually opens up for the Emerge Africa members and linking up with them. And as you say, it's all about networking. And great that we can have this upcoming presentation with Tutleni and also the other ones that we are going to be having at the start of next year that you have told us a little bit about. So that's great. So thanks very much for that, Nicola. And we shall look forward to following up this discussion on the Emerge Africa Facebook page, where you're welcome to ask any subsequent questions. And Nicola will also make her resources available. So thanks, Nicola, for this special feedback session today.